Right, we have one more presentation to go before we have our panel discussion. This is from the LGMA. It's entitled Digital Local Government Working for Everyone. Will you please welcome to the stage Mr. Dominic Byrne.
Okay, thank you very much, Jonathan, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm project manager in the Local Government Management Agency, and I've been tasked with leading the development of a digital and IT strategy for local government. So we already had a local government ICT strategy that was brought us up to 2022. One of the issues with that strategy was that it was very much a technology-focused strategy. It was developed by heads of IT along with technology people in the Local Government Management Agency. So what we wanted to do with this particular strategy was make sure that the focus was on business and achieving business objectives. Not that the other one didn't, but it was just that in formulating this strategy that we would engage the business throughout the process and we would make sure that business needs were prioritized. The other key thing that we wanted to do in developing the strategy was make sure that we involved people and that it was a people-centered approach. And it was interesting, I think, in actually most of the presentations today, that very much came to the fore, in particular looking at Danny's one and the tourism one. It's looking at what people need and so on. Oh, there's my strategy now, so or my presentation. So the overall objective was the digital enablement of local government services. The key focus areas that we wanted to do were cybersecurity, primarily. Obviously, that's critical now with the increased use of technology. There's an overall government objective of having 90% of applicable services available online by 2030. So we need to comply with that. We need to make sure that we have our services online by 2030. And was mentioned earlier on, we have 1,000 services. So that's a big challenge in itself for local government. Fostering innovation, leveraging the use of data, and also supporting the development of smart communities and cities and regions. And what Danny was talking about would fall into that area. This is the project plan, starting in January of this year, going up to August, going through a process of onboarding, then baselining, finding out where we were at the moment. Moving into phase 3 was really the core strategy development, but doing that in a cooperative way, both with staff in the sector, finding out what they would need, what was working for them, but also looking to the public, looking to various representative bodies and so on, then moving into business readiness and planning, and now into the phase we're in at the moment is moving into implementation. So in terms of engagement was a critical part. That's who's that? That's a picture of our session with the Immigration Council of Ireland. The engagement process I mentioned, we were with staff, public, older people, PAVI Point, disabled people, counsellors, outdoor staff, technology vendors. So we made sure, and that was really where all the time went, was making sure that we consulted with people. Within the sector, we met with probably the biggest stakeholders would be the heads of IS, because they're the ones who are going to have to implement this. But also business leads. The CCMA does its work through 7 business committees, so getting representatives from those committees, and some of the people are in the room today, and getting their input in the various business areas and making sure they're covered. Project leads of national projects that we have at the moment, and also our broadband and GIS officers. We carried out a digital maturity assessment of local authorities and the LGMA. That's an online consultation with the Independent Living Movement of Ireland. That's the picture there. There was a survey of local authority and LGMA staff, 5,000 responses to that. And when you consider that there's 30,000 employees in the sector, that was a great response. And it didn't include outdoor workers. It was just the staff who work in offices. Our public survey, we had 1,700 responses. And we had a dedicated survey for our outdoor staff and over 700 responses to that. We also produced a video, which I'll show at the end, and some newsletters to keep people posted and up to date on what's going on. So the strategy has been finalised and it was approved at the end of September. It's called Digital Local Government Working for Everyone. It's our strategy up to 2030. The strategy content, first of all, it sets out the background to why the strategy is happening in overall context. And there's a European context where there's a European strategy and a European digital decade. There's a Digital Ireland framework for a strategy for Ireland, and the key things here in these are skills, infrastructure, business and public services, and we've aligned to all of these strategies and make sure that the strategy that we've developed aligns with all of these. There's a public sector strategy, and then there's a strategy from our parent department that Dara heads up, the Minister heads up. The vision is set out. The vision is for the delivery of modern local government services powered by digital technology. A number of the things that are called out within that vision is working in partnership, improving the way we work using digital, providing consistent services. So one of the things that was mentioned earlier on was about the differences in local authorities, and those differences are real. Each local authority is independent, answerable to its own councillors, but we provide the same services. So how do we ensure that we have a consistency of approach while allowing for those local differences? And they're some of the things that we're tackling in the strategy. The themes of the strategy, and this is the core of the strategy, there's 4 main themes: digital services, and that's about the online services, availing of services online. Digital communities would be the things that we do out in the community. It would cover the likes of broadband, public Wi-Fi, and the kind of initiatives that Danny mentioned earlier on, and similar things. Digital workforce is giving our staff the skills, the tools, the services to do their job, and digital systems are those back-office systems, the traditional IT, so our planning systems, our housing systems, our financial systems. We also have a number of enablers, 7 enablers that underpin this. So there's the likes of cybersecurity, the capability and culture, governance, and so on. So these cross across all these things and underpin what we're doing. Within each of the themes, we've set out statements of intent. So this is the strategy here, and in terms of, so these are kind of a brief summary, or not a summary, the bullet points relating to these statements of intent. So for example, if you look there, people-centred service design, what it actually says in the strategy is we will use a people-centred service design approach in partnership with members of the public, communities and businesses when designing our public services. So for each one of these bullet points, there's a statement that says what we intend to achieve. So you can see consistency of user services, easy to use, joined up, efficient and effective. And then if we move on to the next area of digital communities, you'll see there's statements of intent around these: continuous improvement, leaving no one behind, cooperating with other departments, and again, and other agencies, other organisations. And you can see that was what Danny was doing in his one, and trying to foster that across all of local government. Moving on to the next one, in terms of our own staff, it will be training, fostering innovation, that was I mentioned earlier on as well, openness, transparency, the people resources that we need. And then finally, in digital systems, you know, making repetitive tasks more efficient, consistency of processes. So you can see the general approach of what we're trying to do is setting out the overall objectives. The delivery approach, as well as the strategy itself, there's an implementation plan, a draft implementation plan that's been developed that has 73 actions. They're set out in now, next and later 2-year blocks. In the strategy itself, we've called out the next ones. They're primarily about enabling actions, but also about getting a start on how do we get that 90% of our services online by 2030, doing an analysis of those services, what's available online right now, what's in some local authorities, not in others, where is there online services that aren't delivered at all, prioritising based on volume, based on need, based on importance, and then putting a roadmap in place for actually getting them rolled out. And the overall objectives are by 2030 in each of these areas that we will have the 90% of services online. Our communities will have the connectivity, the facilities they need. Our staff will have the tools they need. We will have secure, modern systems. So what next? We got the final approval on the 28th September of the strategy. We're carrying out a plain English review to turn this into simple English. We have a resourcing plan that we're developing at the moment, and the resourcing plan will then, depending on that resourcing plan and the outcome of that, will determine the implementation plan, priorities and timescale. But we've started with some enabling actions, and here they are here, so around governance, communications, change management, service design and so on, but also starting to look at IT structure review, those mapping of the digital services and so on. So now I'll just play this video that we've put together. And there's sort of a soundtrack to this, which I'm sure will pop up somewhere along the line. I'll sing along to it. So they do, yeah. So obviously you can see here that what the video is expressing is the, you know, about harnessing the power of digital. But we deliberately in this video have presented people, and that's been the focus of it. It's not about the technology. It's about the people. It's about the services that they're using, and that's going to be the focus throughout the strategy. And you've seen that throughout. And when we're looking at that people-focused and that service design approach, it's not just the communities, it's obviously the communities we serve, it's the people who come into our public counters, it's the business that we interact with, but it's also the staff that we have working with us, because they're the front line, they know what works, and there's no point in us designing IT services without involving the staff who are going to be delivering those services. And I think you see here some people, so that's an app and a sensor on Lifebuoys. That's a great project where they put sensors on lifebuoys, and if the lifebuoys are removed, then the staff who look after them know and can activate it, whereas previously they would have to go around and do an inspection of them all. But I think you can see there that there's huge opportunities for the staff who work outdoors, and I think in terms of the strategy, that's one of the things that we really think we can have great benefits in terms of equipping them with the technology, and you could see the guys out there and doing the playground inspections with the app. I was actually down in Glanmire in Cork recently, talking to the guys in the depots, and they've done things where they have their vehicle inspections now on an app. And for them, that's so much. Can you imagine them with paper forms on a dirty, wet day early in the morning in the depot yard, trying to fill out a vehicle inspection on a sheet on paper, whereas now they can just do tap, tap, tap on the app. And as well, so these are guys, what's actually happening here is these smart bins have sensors in them, and they tell you when the bin is full. So the map beforehand was telling when those bins were full, and they can go out and rather than emptying bins that are empty, they can actually target the bins that are full and have a more efficient service on them. So this one here is talking about digital copies and digital twins, they're called now, where we can actually create a digital equivalent of the towns and the cities in which we live. So in this particular case, this is in Swords, in Fingal, and that building over there on the right-hand side doesn't exist. It's a new arts centre and a new community, but people were able to see what that's going to look like in their town and community before it was built. And actually in that, and they were able to put on the VR goggles, and they were able to take a walk through the actual library and through the arts centre before it was actually built. So actually there it is at the end of the video, we're encapsulating what it means for our staff. It's about improving the way they work and allowing to get out of the more mundane stuff and focus on the important things of added value, and for the public, the easier access to services and more consistency. And that's it, digital local government working for everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dominic. Working for everyone, just not for you right now, which was somewhat unfortunate, given that we were talking about the digital space. And look, credit where it's due as well. Dave McIntyre would have been proud of that commentary when he was doing the Rugby World Cup a couple of weeks ago.